Walkout with Paul and Jay, with red hot stories from post game, interviews, analysis, debate the hour, right here at the Growler.
All right, welcome into the latest edition of the Walkout. Paul Dater Jr. of The Athletic, Jay Morrison, Pro Football Network are here with you. We are presented by Cincy Shirts.
Yes. Welcome
aboard, Cincy Shirts. Great to have you here all season. This probably isn't how Cincy Shirts imagined it going.
No.
You know, excitement. Who wants to go out and buy some shirts about everybody celebrating the locker room and trash talking instead? It ends up being the Bengals end up losing to the New England Patriots today, 16-10, in a game that was as disappointing as they pretty much come, and leave everybody asking a whole lot of questions as they walked out of here on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, bad day at Black Rock. And there's not just one thing you can point to. Like you said, there's a lot of concerns that we saw today, and not exactly out of the blue concerns either.
Not exactly out of the blue concerns at all. What we're going to do on this show, and I know some of you are thinking, don't go to the dark place. Are we going to the dark place? We're going to tiptoe through the dark place here, okay? We want to try to have some real talk about what really happened, and not just today, but this entire weekend. Because this entire weekend, to me, the feel of what all went down is what made this feel like one of the worst opening weekends of what has been a lot of bad opening weekends of football for the Cincinnati Bengals. We're going to kind of rank those and go through those. There's just a lot to get through. First, our next live show is going to be coming up. It's going to be before the Monday Night Football game against the Commanders. You know where our live shows are. We're doing them there all season long. It's going to be at BetMGM Sportsbook Nation, Kitchen and Bar at the Banks. Thanks to everybody that came down to our season preview show who thinks our takes were full of crap, because a lot of them were very optimistic, and I don't think anybody's feeling the same way today that people were kind of feeling on Thursday, when the idea of picking the Bengals to go 10-7 brought booze and disillusionment. But we're going to be there. We'll 4 o'clock before the Ring of Honor game against the Commanders. It's going to be great. That's the home. And also, if you like Thursday nights, if you lost today, if you had the Bengals and you were like all on it, you can bring your losing tickets down to BetMGM Sportsbook now. Every Thursday, they do a second chance drawing. Bring your losers. I've had lots of losers. I got lots of losers. Bring your second chance tickets down, and they do a drawing on Thursday nights. And if you're there, you can win $100 in bonus bets, $100 in gift cards for Nation Kitchen and Bar. They have 3 different winners they have on that. It is it's a big deal that they're doing this year in a great way. If you were a loser, if you're holding your Bengals winner ticket today, take it down there, and maybe you can get some of your money back and recoup. The Bengals are wishing they could probably get some of their money back too.
Yes. I mean, what better night to do this than on Thursday night? You can go down and watch Thursday night football. We had a blast watching that Ravens-Chiefs game. Great place to watch a game. Huge TVs all over the place. So, yeah, I'm sure even if you got this game right, you've got to have a loser somewhere.
Yes. Also, a reminder, you can always reserve tables. Go to nationkitchenandbar.com. And for any Sunday, any big event that's going on, you can reserve tables anytime down there to make sure you and your friends have plenty to eat and drink and a place to sit, which they have an awesome venue down there. All right, let's we're gonna get into, we're just gonna go through this. Let's just start. I'll open it up to you. I'll let you start. I have my list and my feelings here. Let's go through the thing that concerned you most. We'll say outside of the obvious of 0-1 from today's. I'm going debacle. I think debacle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was more than a clunker.
It was more than a clunker. It wasn't necessary. It was an egg.
Yeah, a big egg.
I used dump at one point, but that felt a little graphic. It was not great. We're at debacle. What was your feelings on it? What was the biggest concern?
I mean, it has to be the run defense.
Yeah.
That's the thing that they were so focused on, so confident on, that they had fixed even after losing DJ Reader. And it wasn't just the fact that I mean, part of it was some missed fits, but it was just a lot of missed tackles.
Yeah.
And that can't happen. And a lot of them we saw a couple by Dax Hill that led to huge runs. One guy misses, there's nobody else there to clean it up. And I don't know. They don't come up with the missed tackle stats until the day after. I don't know how many there were, but there were a lot. And you're talking about a Patriots team that came into this game with, I guess, beleaguered would be the word. I mean, that's not an impressive offensive line that they ran out there today. And the Bengals were either struggling to get off blocks, or if they were getting off blocks, they were missing tackles. And that's what we talked about. That was the Patriots' path to win, is run the ball down their throat. And that's what they did. Jacoby Brissett, it wasn't spectacular. He was barely even average. Yeah. If they stopped the run in a more consistent basis, we're probably talking about a different outcome.
This was what you were concerned was going to be the problem. I mean, we came into this when everybody asked, what's your biggest concern? What's the biggest issue? It came back to, man, the run defense has to be better. It can't be what suffocates you, where you're losing in the trenches again, and you lost DJ Reader. You got Sheldon Rankins and BJ Hill, where you're kind of relying on them to maybe do a lot, do too much. Chris Jenkins, McKinley Jackson, neither of those guys are playing. They're both dealing with injuries. You were worried. Okay, if last year's was bad, why would it be better now without DJ Reader? And it was, Logan Wilson said it to me, it was a lot of the same stuff. And that's why he's like, it's unacceptable. And you could just sense the frustration where they thought they were over this. They thought they weren't going to have to deal with this crap of 170 yards on the ground. And they sort of righted the ship there in that third quarter after early on. You're like, okay, they just needed a quarter to get themselves right. And then sure enough, the Patriots are able to just waste the game away by breaking some more tackles, getting a few more runs, and the Bengals don't get the ball back.
And it's when everybody in the stadium knew they were going to run at the end of the game. After the Bengals go 3 and out, they have to punt it back because they're so deep in their own territory. It's all right, get another stop, get it back to Burrow. You got a shot, and it's just Stevenson for 12, Stevenson for 9, Stevenson for 10. That can't happen.
Can't happen. So I would agree with you. I would have that as number one. It's just the same stuff. 2 for me is just how sloppy really the entire offense was, and how lacking explosion. You know, we hear explosiveness, right? Gonna find some explosiveness. One pass that gained 16 or more yards. Really, one rush that was really you would consider explosive by Zach Moss. One drive, they even ran the ball at all. They had the touchdown drive. They were able to run the ball, and they got Zach Moss and Chase Brown going. It was boom, boom, boom. Outside of that drive, Zach Moss and Chase Brown combined for 7 carries for 14 yards. Look, New England's got a nice defense. That's fine. It can't be like that. It's supposed to be different, Oh, by the way, in case you want an extra little kick in the junk, Joe Mixon, 159 and a game ball in Houston as they beat Indy today. 30 carries for him, and the Bengals had nothing of the sort. The idea that they'll find more explosiveness in the run game with these backs and this new setup was a non-factor outside of the one drive that led to a touchdown. But to me, the sloppiness and the lack of explosiveness extends into the passing game that didn't challenge downfield, didn't go after that intermediate part of the field, the 10 to 19 yard range, hardly at all. Burrow had 29 passes today, and only 6 of them had more than 7 air yards. I mean, it was underneath football in a phone box. I thought this only happened in the rain in Cleveland and when calf injuries were the issue, but yet here it was again today.
Yeah, and I mean, one of those passes was a third down scramble where he found Yoshi along the sideline, and kind of a scramble drill. It wasn't a designed route or a designed throw. The biggest one of the day, the 28-yarder to Chase. It's like, okay, they got something going here. Well, they do nothing after that, and they have to settle for an Evan McPherson field goal, a 51-yarder at that. And it got them closer, it kept them in the game, but you never saw what we thought we'd see. Now maybe Jamar was not 100%. He's coming back from food poisoning, he said. T. Higgins, that surprise absent. I do think that really, I mean, you've got the whole game plan in, and that happens on Thursday, and he was a central part of it. He's not in there. But again, the running game on defense was a concern. The running game was a concern. They were getting no push whatsoever. There was no holes for those guys to run through. And they did have the one other drive that they scored 2 touchdowns. Well, they almost scored 2 touchdowns. Neither one counted. The Gesicki touchdown gets overturned on a replay reversal. And then Tanner Hudson goes back to the sloppiness you were talking, just very careless with the ball. Almost looked like he was raising it up to celebrate the touchdown before he got in, and then he gets popped and loses it. That was a good drive. That's when you thought things were starting to turn, and it didn't happen. 3 straight 3-and-outs to start the game, and a brutal 3-and-out when they get the ball back with 3 minutes to go and a chance to go down and win the game.
Zach Taylor says after the game, he's like, look, he's taking on all of this heat and questions, and understandably so, for a team that has just been disastrous starting the season. And I think that's probably next in line for me of, is this team ever going to be able to start fast, and what is happening there? Look, Charlie Jones fumbling a punt and Tanner Hudson trying to lift his arm inexplicably at the 1-yard line instead of going in for a touchdown is 10 points. 10 points immediately without another thing that happens, because Hudson should have scored if he just tucks it and goes in like any normal human being would there. And they got a 3-and-out after the Charlie Jones fumble, but it was in field goal range. So you get it 10 points. That's the game, folks. Guess what? You win the game, and you're saying, you know what? It was sloppy, but they found a way to win. They did enough. Or you don't have the Patriots being able to go to their bread and butter of running the ball at the end of the game to try to put it away or get a win. Instead, they're leaning on Jacoby Brissett to throw the ball more. You can't miss 1,000,000 tackles. You can't get 170 yards against you. You can't have 2 stupid turnovers plus a 4th down that you throw short of the sticks and can't get it to get another turnover on downs. That is a masterclass in how you let an 8.5-point underdog that had no business beating you at home beat you at home.
And they're lucky they didn't have 4 turnovers. Burrow got sacked and fumbled on the second play of the game, and they got the ball back there. Didn't matter. They went 3-and-out. You mentioned the 8.5-point underdog. So the Bengals are 1-10 in weeks 1 and 2.
Unreal.
Zach Taylor. Unreal. The only 2 other teams, the Jets are at 2-8 because they haven't played yet this week, and the Carolina Panthers, who you don't want to be in the same conversation with, are 2-9 in that same time frame. So the Bengals are 0-5 in their last 5 week 1 and 2 games. They were favored in all 5. They were favored by 7 or more in 3 of them. Favored by 8.5 today, favored by 7 against Pittsburgh in the 2022 opener, favored by 7 at Dallas in week 2 that year, favored at Cleveland last year in the rain by 1.5, favored still. Week 2 against the Ravens here, favored by 3.5, lost every single one.
It's been consistent. I don't know. Is it the camp, right? And these guys said, and I think we saw it. It was a little bit different camp. The increase in the number of move the ball drills that they did to try to get conditioning going. You had the joint practices, the 2 of them that kind of gave you different feels of different teams, and so you did. I think that they did kind of universally call it one of their toughest camps. That said, why is there's clearly something going on there.
Yeah.
There's clearly some rhyme or reason to it all. I do still tend to say, look, they have found ways. They have eventually gotten it straightened out, and you like where they are at the end of the season. Should they go and be more physical and more tenacious in camp and take on the possibility of more injuries? Maybe. I don't know. I tend to think that you got to have teams that are ready to go. The thing that used to say is, oh, well, it's because Burrow hasn't had a normal camp. And yet you can kind of throw that out the window then after this.
Missed 1 practice in camp this year. He was not willing to say he's 100% healthy, but everybody, Burrow, his teammates, his coaches, said he had a great camp. He looked good. We saw it. So throw that one out the window. I don't know what it is. I know what it's not. And everybody talks about playing in the preseason. I'm not buying that.
No.
There's a lot of good teams that start fast that don't play their starters in the preseason. I don't think that's the answer. I still think the risk outweighs the reward there, but there's something they have to figure out. And Logan Wilson said, he's like, I'm sick of having this conversation.
Yes. Well, 1-10 is 1-10. 5 in a row when you're favored is 5 in a row when you are favored, especially when they have become a different team later on as they've gone over and over again. For me, what's your view on Burrow? Like, we're going to talk about, they really weren't given anything deep. He's not throwing the ball down the field. We hear Jamar Chase talk a little bit about there were more opportunities. He slowed me up on a deep one to protect him. And there's a lot of, to me, this didn't look like the Burrow that we had kind of seen in camp. He had looked better, and you didn't really see a lot of him really gripping it and ripping it. He made some nice throws, but it felt a little bit more like the calf offense. Outside he could scramble.
Yeah.
He was able to scramble and flush out and do a pretty nice job of finding guys there, but there wasn't a lot of really letting it go and attacking some of the deeper parts of the field. And some of that's defense, I'm sure, but it seemed like there was a reluctance in general to do that.
Yeah, and I think a little bit of it was being gun shy. I mean, I talked about the second play of the game. He gets sacked from behind, fumbles. He saw a lot of pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And, he only got sacked 3 times in the game, but that's because he did. He escaped a few and made some throws on the run. He escaped and took off and ran the ball. I don't think it's an injury issue of being gun shy, of getting hit. I think it's just more the clock sped up. It's the first game of the year. He only had the one series in the preseason. And I think that just they went away from the deep ball. And Zach said they did call a few, and there was just better options underneath. And that second play of the game, that was a go ball to Jamar. He was staring Jamar down. Jamar had one-on-one coverage on the outside. He didn't even have time to throw it. He got hit and fumbled before Jamar could even get down the field where he could throw it to him. So I think that was a big part of it. This offensive line did not hold up, and it was just a matter of, okay, you got to pivot now, and some shorter passes, some check downs, and some screens.
And really, it just was never felt in rhythm.
No.
They would have drives, and then the next one will be sloppy, and then you got to talk about what happened at the end. Okay, after all of this, after everything that went down, you get the ball with a couple of minutes left, and Joe Burrow with a chance to go the length of the field, and you have one of the ugliest 3-and-out drives you will see, with a drop, a sack. I mean, it was just, it had no shot. It never got off the ground, and an embarrassing attempt, and they never get the ball back.
Yeah.
You decide to punt it away, which I don't have a huge problem with. You had the timeouts and the 2-minute warning. Try to get a stop and get it back. When you consider what was going on, I don't have a huge problem with that. That said, it just can't be that bad. Like that's a moment where you can't be that bad.
Yeah, and Zach got booed for punting there. I agree with it too. If you're in the middle of the field, then yeah, go for it. But if you're down where they were, the 10-yard line, if you don't get it, that's an automatic field goal for the Patriots, and now you're down 2 scores, and it's probably over. The first down pass to Jamar, and Joe said it, he missed the throw. Joe put the second down pass on himself too. He said he missed Zach Moss. He hit Zach Moss in the hand. Zach Moss dropped it. Wasn't a perfect pass. It was a little bit behind him, but that's a 5-yard play, and all of a sudden you're talking 3rd and 5 now instead of 3rd and 10. So it was ugly bookends. Like I said, the 3 3-and-outs to start the game, and then the 3-and-out to end the game. Just awful execution.
Hey, they play Kansas City next in Arrowhead, though. Yeah. So there's that going for you. Yeah, well, it's going to be fascinating to see how they're able to bounce back. Here's the thing, though, and I want to touch on this because we haven't really had a chance to. Friday and Saturday, really, and into today was just really just disastrous, really, a couple of days too. I mean, you have Jamar Chase's availability on Friday, where he talks about, look, they came to me. I didn't demand an extension. They came to me about wanting to do one. He does the hold, and he says they're pretty close. Use that. He says he does believe that the offer that was on the table reflects the bends over backwards thing that Mike Brown had talked about. So he felt like there was a bend over backwards offer on the table, his words. He felt like they were pretty close, his words. And he chose not to do it. On the other side, the Bengals were arguably pretty close, had made a big deal about it, wanted to do it. And they don't stretch to get to where Jamar wants to be. This is the rare lose-lose. Yeah. Like, these things usually, so who won, who lost? I think they both lose. Jamar takes on a ton of risk to play this year. Ask Nick Chubb about that. Ask Joe Burrow, has he freaked out about, learning about his wrist recovery and all that was? Ask anybody that's ever run into any kind of unforeseen troubles off the field in any number of ways. Things change dramatically from year to year. And to have something that you think was a bend over backwards offer in front of you and to say no, all of that money and what that can mean for you is a big risk. And I'm surprised that there wasn't a ground there. And in the same respect, the Bengals need to be more aggressive. These things are adding up, man. Like there's just too many of these between their two second and third best players, arguably. Let's throw in fourth. Let's throw in Trey Hendrickson. All believe they have not valued them properly.
Yeah.
All of them have expressed disappointment in how the team has valued them. Right or wrong, you can feel however you want to feel about that. Those are big dents that add up to look like a wreck and feel like a wreck and send a message across the locker room to everybody that wonders how they're going to be treated if they do everything right and they become one of this team's best players. What's it going to look like with them? Are they going to be in a fight? Are they going to have to put in a trade request? Are they going to have to hold in and still not get a deal and still not feel like they're getting deals done? Every receiver gets a deal this year except for T and Jamar.
Yeah.
Everyone that wanted one, basically. And all of these, 5 of these guys in his top 10 of his draft class. All of this happens. And we saw what happened with Jesse Bates, and we saw Trey Hendricks, all of these things. They just add up after a while, and they're really adding up. And at some point, the value the Bengals feel like they're getting by treating these negotiations this way is not worth it for what it's going to do all year now. That's going to be in the back of heads of whether T and Jamar, and if you're talking about soft tissues and should you come back, and just your general attitude about things when they get hard. These guys are pros and they're going to go out there and they have everything to play for. But that stuff, as human nature, still leaves a mark. And to me, when you compile that with then coming out here and playing like this afterwards, it just adds up to feel so much worse than just one loss.
And you mentioned, that's where we don't know the extent of T. Higgins' hamstring injury. Obviously, it's serious enough he couldn't play today. But then what happens if Jamar tweaks one? It just makes sense that he's going to play it safe. Like you said, you don't want to suffer a catastrophic injury. You don't want to risk that going into what's going to be a contract offseason. So you're talking about maybe you're gonna miss games here. And yeah, it's a decent amount of money that they were apart, even though they're close. You're still talking about millions of dollars, but it's pennies on the dollar when you consider about what the overall scope of the contract is. And if you're Jamar, you take it right now, you put it in the bank, you invest it, and the interest alone is going to make up for what you're going to get next year. And if you're the Bengals, you knew this day was coming, and you knew you were going to have to pay him top of market if he performed the way you wanted him to, and he has. And it's frustrating to see them just haggle over what feels like an insignificant amount. If you're that close, rarely does it get that close. Like Jesse Bates never got that close. T. Higgins never got that close. When they get close, they make it happen typically. And it's just baffling how it didn't happen this time.
And we saw it happen across the league. There were a ton of deals done over the last 3 days. Dak Prescott got $60 million today for breaking the market and all over the place. And you just see all of these deals getting done. And the fact that you couldn't find a way to get it done with, what's supposed to be your core, your primary weapon for this franchise for the next half a decade is going to be, Burrow to Chase. And to not just find a way to get it done to avoid all of the junk that will now come with this season and all next off season and everything else, it feels like a lot and a big miss by both sides. I think both sides miss here, and both sides probably will come away. I think both sides will end up regretting it. I really do.
It's speculation, but we've seen this team break trends and do things they haven't done in the past. This stinker, clunker, debacle, whatever we're going with today, does this change it? Do they negotiate? Could something still get done after seeing what happened today and they come to the realization that we just pointed out that, yeah, let's just get it done. It's too important.
You never know. You never know what will happen next. Certainly this has been an unpredictable situation already, but traditionally almost 100% across the board. When the season starts, it's over. The deadlines have passed. It's time to go play. And this team has a lot to think about when it comes to what they got to do next, which is figure out all these problems we just went through and do that while going to face Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. All right. We're going to be doing this on the Walkout all year, where we're going to have the Cincy Shirts shirt of the game, where they're going to send us some of the ideas that they have of anything that would be, you know, a great shirt. What it could be like, you know, send those refunds, or you know, whatever, 7-Eleven, we the big dogs. It seems to happen all the time, and usually though, it usually tends to come after a win.
Yeah.
So every walkout, we're gonna have a Cincy Shirts shirt of the game. You guys can use our promo code GrowlerPod. You can also you can see the QR code right up here, and go in there, and the link to all the merch is on there. And we're going to have merch.
Yeah.
Growler merch is coming your way, so make sure you keep an eye on that. But 10% off anything that you buy if you just use GrowlerPod as your promo code, including the shirts that we're going to be featuring here on the Walkout after games all year long. Are you buying a Patriots 16, Bengals 10 shirt?
If it says I didn't fumble.
Yeah. I think that's it. I think that's the one. All right. I want to thank everybody for watching the Walkout presented by Cincy Shirts. It was great to have y'all with us. We'll be doing this all year. Of course, next week from Kansas City, more of the same. So thanks everybody for watching, and we will talk to you next time. Have a good one.